Ethan was born a rich heir, supposed to inherit the family business and live a life of glory. Who would have thought his own father would turn his back on him, favoring his cousin Kai like he was his own son, treating him better than his actual flesh and blood? If Kai so much as scraped his knee, his father would summon the nation's top doctors to develop a custom cure. But if Ethan suffered a comminuted fracture, he'd toss him a stick and tell him to walk it off. Why? Because the world he lived in was actually a cheap, loser-turned-swinner redemption novel, and he was just the doomed villainous supporting male lead, fated to die miserably. The male lead, Kai, had a tragic background, a meek personality, but was overflowing with a sense of justice. Moral blackmail was his weapon of mass destruction. The female lead, Serafina, was an aloof CEO in public, but secretly a slave to love. And the worst part? There was a higher force controlling everything, the will of the world, named Anya. She'd use plot armor in reverse to force the story forward, pushing him step by step toward destruction. But none of them knew Ethan had decided to flip the table. If he couldn't win, no one would. Mutual destruction beat solo victory. None of them were getting their happy ending. Chapter 1. Cold water splashed across Ethan's face. That's when he woke up, surrounded by the alto familiar voices of judgment. His loving parents and his oh-so-elegant ex-fiancée, Serafina. And of course, there was the unavoidable justice demon, his dear cousin Kai. What was the accusation this time? That he bullied Kai after he provoked him, or that he stole the birthday gift Kai planned to give Serafina? It didn't matter anymore. What mattered was that he had suddenly inherited memories that didn't belong to him. Turns out this world was straight out of a novel where a beautiful CEO falls in love with a broke guy. And he was Ethan, the classic villain meant to oppose Kai at every turn. His only role was to highlight his greatness and righteousness. His suffering existed to make his romance with Serafina more touching. His fate was to be hated by everyone, to have his reputation ruined, and eventually die in despair. And Kai? He'd walk over his corpse and inherit the entire Zhang family fortune. He'd live happily ever after with Serafina, becoming the golden couple everyone envied. Why? Just because he was the main character. His parents treated Kai like their own son because back then his father fought his older brother for power and ended up inheriting the family business. His brother, crushed by the loss, passed away in sorrow. That guilt had haunted him ever since, and now he was trying everything he could to make it up to Kai. So in their household, Kai was practically royalty. The moment he frowned, someone else must be at fault. And if Ethan tried to explain himself, suddenly he was the rebellious son with no respect for authority. Serafina? She was blind and foolish. Every time Kai lied and Ethan exposed him, she'd jump in to defend him, then turn around and yell at him. The face he once loved now only looked stupid and pitiful. He finally realized he was living in a preset script. His pain fed Kai's growth. His misfortune was the foundation of his happiness. Struggle? Resistance? All meaningless. Any attempt to deviate was corrected by an invisible hand. Fight back and you only die faster. Ethan rubbed his temples and calmly glanced around the room. Their scolding droned on like flies buzzing in his ears. He stood up, said nothing, and turned to leave. Behind him, his mother screamed, "Ethan, what kind of attitude is that?" He locked his bedroom door. From the depths of his closet, he dragged out the suitcase he'd secretly packed. ID, bank cards, some cash, a few changes of clothes. In the novel, Ethan always tried to explain himself after being framed. He'd try to fix things, only to end up deeper in misunderstanding. He wasn't interested in that. If he was doomed to be cannon fodder, he'd rather exit early. He opened the window and checked that no one was outside. Second floor. He tossed his suitcase down and climbed out after it. His knee stung when he landed, but he didn't stop. He picked up the suitcase and disappeared into the night. No note, no goodbye, as if he'd never existed. He could already picture the chaos that would follow his disappearance, especially for Kai. He must be freaking out. How could his precious villainous prop suddenly go off script? Without my evil deeds, who's he going to perform his justice for? Without my schemes, how will his love with Serafina be tested? But unfortunately for them, he was done playing their game. Chapter 2. Ethan took temporary refuge in a small town far from the city. The first thing he did was swap out his SIM card, cutting off all ties to the past. Within a couple of days, he spotted a missing person notice tucked in the corners of local news. Between the lines, it implied he was irresponsible, squandered the family fortune, and ran off after scamming them, possibly manipulated by someone. They were trying to ruin his reputation to make life impossible for him. Serafina was probably leveraging her connections too. After all, her male lead Kai must be wringing his hands over this. Kai's acting skills had always been solid. Unfortunately for them, his foresight into the plot was his best shield. The situation was different, but in the story, he also disappeared once. That's why he had always managed to stay one step ahead. While hiding, he wasn't idle. He started gathering evidence to protect himself. Financial trickery in Zhang Corporation over the years, his father's shady business deals, his mother's secret transfers of assets. And was Kai really as noble, radiant, and righteous as he appeared to be? Ethan didn't buy it. Not a single thread or clue would escape him. It felt like he was creeping through darkness alone with danger lurking in every shadow. But every clue he uncovered, every tracker he dodged, brought him one step closer to true freedom. Chapter 3. During his time in hiding, he crossed paths with a man named Daniel. Daniel had been sent by his father to find him. Ethan happened to be sick with a cold at the time, drained and careless, and that's how he tracked him down. But instead of reporting him immediately, he urged him to escape far away. Ethan, he's not someone who values old ties, he said. He lowered his head and continued. Last time, when my daughter was sick and urgently needed a specialist, he told me to get lost. It was you, young master, you gave me that doctor's contact. So that had happened. Ethan barely remembered, probably just something he did in passing. But for Daniel, it became the reason he was risking himself now. Ethan, you have to go, get far away. His voice was anxious. They don't just want to bring you back. I overheard Mr. Zhang telling Madam that the Wu family's son has a terminal illness and your tissue match is perfect. So this time they're bringing you back to trade you for a partnership with the Wus to save the company. Expected, but hearing it confirmed by someone else chilled him to the bone. They said if you don't agree, they'll lock you up and force you to sign. Daniel's voice was shaking. Ethan listened in silence. So this is what his loving parents had in mind. To them, their own son was nothing but a pawn to be sacrificed for profit. He said, "Got it. Thank you for telling me this, Daniel." His voice was calm. Daniel was taken aback, probably not expecting him to be so composed. But Ethan shifted the tone. My dad is suspicious by nature. If you show up empty-handed, he won't let you off. Daniel turned pale. Ethan handed him a piece of paper. This is where I'm staying now, but I'll be gone soon. Once he sends people, they'll confirm I was indeed here. At most, he'll scold you for being inefficient. He won't suspect you, at least not for now. Daniel accepted the note, gave him a grateful look, and said, Young master, please be careful. I will, he replied, looking him in the eye. You too. Daniel nodded and hurried off, disappearing into the rain. Ethan curled his lips into a cold smile. At first, he'd wanted to disappear completely, to be done with it all. But now he'd changed his mind. This debt needed to be settled thoroughly. Just as he was preparing to return to the city, the unexpected happened. He was stopped at the long-distance bus station. Several men blocked his way, and leading them was his father himself. His face was grim. Come home with me. Ethan stared at him coldly. And if I say no? His father lowered his voice and threatened. Ethan, don't make me use force. He laughed. Use force? Here. He raised an eyebrow, his voice just loud enough. You want everyone here to witness how the chairman of Zhang Group kidnaps his own son in broad daylight. People around them were already starting to look. His father's face darkened further. He knew making a scene here would only damage the Zhang family's reputation. He quickly changed his tone and said, Ethan, why are you being so stubborn? I know maybe I haven't done everything right, but we're family. Can't we just go home and talk things out? He knew exactly what his father was trying to do. Trick him into going back, then lock him up and plan his next move. Still, since he was handing him a perfectly reasonable excuse to return, why not take it? Perfect timing. He was heading back anyway, to face the banquet of betrayal that had long been set for him. Chapter 4. Setting foot in the Zhang family villa again felt like stepping into a different lifetime. His parents, Kai, and Serafina were all seated on the sofa, each with a different expression. He walked in calmly and sat down on the single armchair across from them. Ethan, you're finally back. We were so worried about you. His mother jumped in first, playing the family emotion card. She said, "Do you know how much trouble the company is in? We're family. You should be helping us through this." He looked at her fake, concerned face and replied with a flat tone, "Get to the point." Her expression froze. Serafina immediately chimed in with a scoff. "Ethan, Uncle and Auntie raised you. It wasn't easy. No one's saying you owe them your whole life. But don't be such an ungrateful brat. The family's in trouble now, and you're running away. There's a chance to fix everything. Young Master Wu is sick and needs a kidney. You're a match. Stepping up would be good for you and the Zhang family." He turned to her, his gaze icy. "Serafina, who do you think you are to butt into my business?" Her face flushed crimson. She bit her lip and said, "I'm Kai's girlfriend. That doesn't make me an outsider. Of course I care about the Zhang family." He chuckled. "Being a girlfriend makes you not an outsider? Well, isn't that wonderful? Since Miss Chun is so concerned about the Zhang family, where's the Chun family's helping hand? Or is your concern just empty words?" Serafina was stunned into silence. Kai stepped in to smooth things over. "Ethan, how can you say that? Serafina cares, that's from the heart. But this is ultimately our Zhang family's issue. How could we trouble the Chun family over it?" His father followed up. "Kai's right. Ethan, how can you be so ungrateful?" He glared at him and said, "The Zhang family is the Zhang family. The Chun family is the Chun family. We handle our own problems. As the son of the Zhang family, it's your responsibility. Don't try to dodge it." His father, putting on a brave front with nothing to back it up, was refusing to swallow his pride and suffer through hardship. He'd rather save face and suffer for it than ask the Chin family for help. All because he was terrified of losing face and even more afraid of jeopardizing Kai's ties with the Chin family. So instead, they came to him, their own son, to be exploited like a patch for their sinking ship. Ethan nodded. "You're right. We should handle our own problems." "I agree completely." He paused, clearly catching the flash of relief on their faces. Then he slowly twisted the knife. "But to me, you're no different from outsiders. So don't trouble an outsider like me with the Zhang family's mess, okay?" His words were like an invisible slap, hitting the three of them square in the face. His father's lips trembled in rage, stammering, "You." Kai spoke heavily. "Ethan, I know you're angry, but you can't say that to your parents. Everything they've done has been for the good of the Zhang family." He sighed, wearing that self-righteous noble expression. "Forget it. If Ethan really won't do it, I'll donate instead." Ethan cut him off. "Stop pretending to be some selfless hero. Who are you performing for? You think you can just say, 'I'll donate,' without even being tested for compatibility? Anyone with half a brain knows that's a load of crap." Kai was completely silenced, his jaw clenched in frustration. His mother, having failed at the gentle approach, finally lost her patience. She jabbed her finger at his face, yelling, "Ethan, you ungrateful, selfish brat. How did I give birth to something like you?" With that, she raised her hand to slap him. That scene had played out countless times in this house. He used to just take it silently or dodge it, but this time was different. He shot to his feet, spun around, and strode toward the redwood display shelf. He grabbed his mother's most cherished antique vase without hesitation and stormed to the door. With a powerful swing, he hurled it. Thud! The vase landed in the communal trash can, smashing into shards among the filth. The living room fell into stunned silence. All four of them, including the servants, stared at him like they were seeing a monster. He turned back, expressionless. He smiled. "Try laying a hand on me again," he said, his voice ringing clear in every ear. "Next time, I won't be so gentle with what I throw." His mother trembled all over, her face shifting from red to green to ghostly white. She pointed at him, sputtering, but no words came out. Clearly, the fate of that vase had both frightened and pained her. For the first time, she realized her son had really snapped. He was ready to do anything. She didn't dare take another step forward. After that brief moment of shock, she swallowed her rage and gave a vicious signal to the two bodyguards nearby. So if brute force didn't work, they'd try something shady. Drugging him? Locking him up? Was the novel's script finally about to play out? He sneered, pulling a small recorder from his pocket and waving it. "I'd suggest you think twice," he said, staring at his mother, enunciating clearly. "If I don't leave here safely and on time tonight, or if I lose contact with the outside world afterward, My friend will call the cops immediately, and all the lovely evidence I've collected on the Zhang Corporation, and the two of you will be sent straight to the media." Her face twisted with shock and rage. "You're threatening me." He answered coolly. "You forced me to." Calmly, he continued. "So here's the choice. Either let me go now, or we all go down together. Pick one." She was so furious her chest heaved violently, but she didn't dare act. Her plan to control him had failed again. All she had left was powerless rage. Chapter 5. They had no choice but to let him go for now, but he wasn't allowed to disappear from their radar. He had to remain within their line of sight. And so the stalemate dragged on for 2 days. On the third day, his mother's attitude abruptly shifted. She had someone bring him back home and told him the Wu family had already found a suitable donor. Then she suddenly changed the subject, even managing to squeeze out a gentle smile. She said, "Ethan, recently I've been helping you find a nice girl." He raised an eyebrow and waited for her to continue. She said, "She's a good friend of Kai's, the heiress of the Li family. Her name is Anya Li." Her tone was unusually warm, clearly forced. "She's well-educated, respectful to her parents, and has a great impression of you." His mother smiled again and added, "And the Li family said if you two hit it off, they'd be more than happy to help us through our current difficulties." The moment the name Anya came out of her mouth, alarm bells rang in his mind. That name. He vaguely remembered her. She'd often been around Kai at family events, in karaoke rooms, at group dinners, always off to the side, quiet, easy to overlook. Back then, he hadn't thought much of it, but looking back now, whenever Kai finished playing basketball, she'd be the first to hand him a water bottle. When he was hungry, she just happened to have packed an extra lunch. When he was sick, she'd conveniently be passing by with medicine. Her care for Kai had always been timely, yet never blatant. It all seemed like coincidence. Too many coincidences. And now she shows up at this moment as Kai's friend? Way too convenient, like a trap carefully laid. His suspicion toward Anya's identity and motives flared almost instantly, but he couldn't let any of it show. He said, "Oh." He feigned calm. "Since she's Kai's friend, sure, no harm in meeting and getting to know her." He needed to keep them at ease while he secretly investigated. Who was this Anya? What was her connection to Kai and to this world that was increasingly off-script? He had to find out. Chapter 6. He started spending time with Anya, and everything about her felt too perfect to be real. She was stunningly beautiful, tall, graceful, polite, and impossibly kind. Flawless in every way. Her attitude toward him was perfectly balanced, not too cold, not overly eager, just the right level of interest and sincerity to make someone believe she genuinely liked them. If he hadn't been on high alert already, he probably would have fallen for it. He began digging into her background, using every resource he could access. And what he uncovered was deeply disturbing. Everything about her life was so pristine it felt manufactured. She came from a wealthy family, but the Li Corporation was only founded a year before she was born. Even stranger, despite being so young, the company had grown at an unnatural pace. Every project, every investment it touched was backed by an uncanny streak of luck and coincidence that defied logic. And her personal history? Scrubbed clean. It was like someone had polished her past until there wasn't a single flaw left, or any useful information for that matter. What confirmed his suspicions was what happened every time he tried to break a key plot node. For example, he once reached out to a journalist who could expose the Zhang family's financial scandals. He suddenly fell ill and flew abroad. He found a company interested in buying evidence he held against the Zhang family. The night before the signing, the CEO was injured in a freak car accident. Behind every one of these setbacks, he kept sensing Anya's shadow. It was as if she knew the direction the story should take, and at every crucial moment, she would act subtly, disrupting his plans or dragging him back onto the correct narrative track just when he was about to break free. And that's when the horrifying truth began to crystallize in his mind. Anya was most likely the human embodiment of this world's will. Her mission was to preserve the stability of the original plotline, to ensure Kai remained the protagonist and reached his happy ending. And he, the vile supporting male who had awakened and dared to stray from the script, was her prime target for suppression and correction. He wasn't fighting a person, he was fighting the architect of the rules themselves. That realization sent a chill down his spine, but it also fueled an even fiercer determination. Chapter 7. Anya's interference was growing more blatant and forceful. She no longer settled for subtle guidance. At times, she would outright manipulate reality with supernatural power to twist the situation in her favor. All of his evasion and resistance now seemed like temporary wins. As long as he remained within this story, he was bound to be dragged back to the tragic ending written for him. No, he couldn't let this go on. He forced himself to calm down and carefully analyze the current situation. According to the book's plot, he dies a humiliating death after a complete downfall. By contrast, Kai becomes even more noble and righteous through his disgrace, ultimately marrying Seraphina and inheriting the Zhang family's empire. His timely exit is a crucial part of Kai's perfect ending. So what if this key prop, him, disappeared entirely before the final act? A dangerous idea took shape in his mind. If his death would jeopardize Kai's happily ever after, would that be a bug in the world will's code? Would she, Anya, be willing to see that happen? It was a crazy gamble, but he had to try. He took the initiative to invite Anya out, choosing the rooftop of a tall building as their meeting spot. The moment she arrived, he acted. He pretended to break down, rushing toward the edge of the rooftop, making it look like he was ready to jump. He clenched his jaw. "I know who you are," he screamed at her, half performance, half raw emotion bursting free. "If you're so hellbent on forcing me back into that damned ending, then I'd rather destroy everything right now. Destroy your precious, perfect story." The wind whipped his hair, his clothes flapping wildly, and he saw it. A change in Anya's expression. That face which always carried calm grace now showed unmistakable panic and a clear desire to stop him. She even instinctively stepped forward to grab him. Her usually composed tone trembled. "Ethan, calm down." That single moment confirmed everything. His presence and his timely exit was absolutely essential to this story. He didn't jump. He just stood on the edge, staring her down with icy defiance. Now, for the first time, he held something fragile but real that could threaten her. And it was finally his turn to negotiate. Chapter 8. Anya quickly regained her composure. She looked at him, her eyes unreadable. "All right, Ethan," she said. "I admit it. Your role is critical to the integrity of this narrative." For the first time, she spoke to him like a controller behind the curtain. Then she made an offer. She said, "If you cooperate with me and complete the remaining key plot points, ensuring that Kai reaches his destined happy ending, then when all of this is over, I can arrange a brand new life for you. One free from the original tragedy. One that could even be truly happy." The future she painted was tempting. Freedom, a fresh start, maybe even peace. But could he trust a force that saw him as nothing more than a tool, as a pawn to be scripted and discarded? Not for a second. Still, he had no better option. He wasn't strong enough to fight her Hedon. He hesitated on purpose, then finally nodded like he'd made a hard decision. "Fine, I'll cooperate. But you have to keep your word." "Of course," she said with a soft smile. He was safe for now, at least until he completed the rest of the story. She wouldn't risk eliminating him. But that didn't mean he could let his guard down. If anything, he watched her more closely than ever, and he soon noticed she was accelerating the plot. She pushed the romance between Kai and Seraphina hard and fast, scripting coincidence after coincidence, heroic rescues, romantic scenes. At the same time, she intensified her pressure on him. Rumors and schemes that weren't supposed to surface until later in the plot began appearing early. It was like she was racing against the clock. But why? That question gnawed at him until one day he returned early to the safe house she designed for him, a location designed for her to monitor him easily. Through the door, he heard her voice, low and anxious, muttering to herself. She grumbled, "That damn author went MIA ages ago. The power is fading. Kai's ending was never finalized, but I have to take the gamble. I need to push him towards some kind of happiness fast, or else." In that moment, he understood everything. Chapter 9. So that's it. Anya, the so-called embodiment of the world's will, was never some omnipotent god. Her power came from the source material, a story that had already been abandoned midway by its author. The writer ghosted the project, left the ending unfinished, and as a result, Anya's strength had been steadily weakening. Her obsession with ensuring Kai's happy ending wasn't about him at all. It was just a desperate attempt to preserve her crumbling existence. This revelation gave him a sliver of real hope. She was weakening, and she was desperate. Right then, his phone buzzed, an encrypted message from Leo, his closest senior from university. Leo had started his own biotech company a few years ago. Previously, he'd secretly sent him preliminary results from some pharmaceutical research he'd done by exploiting Zhang family resources. Leo had been incredibly interested. He'd been trying to track him down ever since. The message was, "Ethan, your research is incredibly valuable. If you're willing, bring it here. We'll take care of everything else." It was the opportunity he'd dreamed of, a way to escape this soap opera of a plot and truly start over on his own terms. He replied immediately, expressing his willingness to join. Then he rushed to gather all his research data and experiment logs. These were more important than his life. He had made multiple backups and hidden them in various locations, but he wasn't slick enough to escape Anya's notice. The night before he was set to leave the city for good, she found out. To her, he was a critical plot device. Until her mission was complete, she couldn't afford to lose control of him. So she used the last of her waning power and directly took control. He blacked out. When he opened his eyes, he found himself locked inside an abandoned warehouse. Dust and mildew filled the air. Everything he could have used to contact the outside world was gone. Anya stood before him. She wore a pale slip dress, fabric clinging to her frame in disarray. One strap had broken off her shoulder and was slipping down. The hem was wrinkled and even torn in places. Before he could make sense of her intentions, she spoke. "Ethan, I gave you a chance," she said as she walked toward him. "Why can't you just stay where you belong?" She wanted to use her final trick to fully subdue him, but he was no longer the Ethan who relied on threats and evasion to survive. Over the past 6 months, he had never stopped preparing, anticipating the possibility of physical confrontation. He had secretly taken up combat training. Not long, but maybe just long enough. Thankfully, Anya underestimated him, assuming he was still the pathetic version from the original plot. She had only tied his hands. He waited, then when her guard was down, he seized the chance. He grabbed a nearby chair and launched forward without hesitation. No fear, no holding back. Sweep kick, left stomp, knee to the gut. She never saw it coming, certainly not from him. She crashed to the ground with a muffled groan. He didn't hesitate. He launched a flurry of brutal kicks, leaving her bruised and motionless. Untying the rope, he looked down at Anya, collapsed on the ground. There was only one thought in his mind. End this once and for all. Chapter 10. Just as he'd taken down Anya and was finally catching his breath, the warehouse door creaked open. He turned, and his pupils contracted in shock. Serafina. Behind her stood 2 unfamiliar men, their expressions hostile, each holding a camera. Clearly not here for anything good. Then he understood. This had been Anya's backup plan, or rather, part of her original script. She wanted them to barge in, see Anya in that disheveled state, and record evidence of him assaulting her. She was going to destroy him with this, use it to blackmail him into playing along with her goddamn story. Serafina froze briefly at the sight of Anya on the ground, but quickly composed herself. Her expression morphed into performative outrage. "Ethan, how could you do something like this?" she cried. She probably thought this was just another impromptu plot twist from Anya and didn't question it. She and the 2 men advanced with their cameras. He was seething, but he couldn't lose his cool. It was 1 against 3, and 2 of them were men. He couldn't win Hedon. He scanned the room, spotted a rusted iron rod nearby, took a deep breath, then charged forward and kicked Serafina straight in the stomach. She doubled over in shock and pain, and in that moment he grabbed the iron rod and slammed it into the back of her neck. He heard groans, bodies hitting the floor. Serafina, pampered rich girl that she was, had no chance of enduring a real hit. The 2 men stood frozen for a second. They tried to jump him, but he knocked them both down with sweeping strikes. They had no weapons, no guts, no killer instinct. He, on the other hand, was in full survival mode. Every strike was calculated, merciless. From beginning to end, he didn't give them a single chance. Minutes later, 3 bodies lay sprawled across the floor. He stood over them, gasping for air. That's when he noticed a small bottle sticking out of Anya's pocket. The label read, "Potent hallucinogenic aphrodisiac." So this was her tool for staging the evidence? Disgusting. He picked it up, walked over to each unconscious figure, and forced every last drop of the drug down their throats. Not a single drop wasted. Then he picked up Serafina's phone from the floor, unlocked it using her fingerprint, opened the camera. He placed the phone at a distance, angled to capture both audio and the chaos in the corner of the warehouse. It didn't take long. Soon, the drug took effect, and the sickening sounds began. That should be enough. Amid the chaos, Anya's discarded phone screen suddenly lit up beside him. He glanced at the screen. The sender was Kai. It read, "Anya, how did it go? Is that useless trash taken care of yet?" So not only was he aware, he may have been involved in the whole setup. He picked up Anya's phone and transferred the footage he had just recorded with Serafina's phone onto it. Then he set a complex password for the video file. Using Anya's tone, he replied, "Yes, it's done. Here's the evidence. I encrypted it so it won't leak early." He attached the file and sent it. Then he added, "Oh, and I made a few adjustments to the world's rules. Right now, send the video and the password to all the PR accounts you've bought. Push the scandal that Ethan assaulted the heiress of the Lee family. Once this scandal goes public, your protagonist aura will be completely locked in. Your happy ending will be secure. No more waiting for plot triggers. This is the fastest route I can give you." He knew Kai. He was obsessed with the idea that he was the chosen one and that Ethan was the obstacle he had to destroy. His craving for a happy ending had long overwritten his ability to think rationally. Sure enough, he replied quickly, "That's amazing, Anya. Thank you. I'll do it right away." His message reeked of eagerness and venomous delight. He stared at the screen coldly. "Kai, this is the path you chose." Then he added, "I've already hired a ton of internet trolls. Once the video goes live, we'll bury him." He responded with a single word, "Okay." Then he deleted all messages, files, and logs from both phones and did a full factory reset on each. After confirming he'd left no fingerprints or traces, he quietly walked out of that filthy warehouse. A new show was about to begin. At dawn, it was as if someone dropped a bomb on the internet. Rich heir Ethan assaults Lee family heiress. The headline exploded across every major platform. Kai's paid trolls went full force, flooding the feeds with vile comments and conspiracies. The scandal surged to the top of every trending list. But then, as curious netizens rushed to find out more and clicked on the viral video being shared, everyone was stunned. The footage was dim, the camera aimed at a warehouse corner on the floor, but the audio was crystal clear and the flashes of tangled limbs were unmistakable. There were 4 people, 2 women, 2 men. Though the women's faces were partially obscured, they were still identifiable. One was Anya Lee, the Lee family heiress. The other was Serafina, Haycity's most famous socialite, heiress of the Chin Corporation. As for the 2 men, though their faces were unfamiliar, internet sleuths quickly identified them, Serafina's bodyguards. Not a single trace of him, Ethan, appeared in the footage. Public opinion flipped instantly. Comments flooded in, "WTF? I thought Ethan was the predator. Why are Serafina and Anya the ones in this video? The 4 of them? Were they drugged? This is some freaky something's off. Who filmed this? Who spun this into a smear campaign against Ethan? Wait, Kai's dating Serafina and Anya is his close friend? This whole thing reeks. Rich circles are messed up." Kai, no doubt, was frozen in horror the moment he saw the actual footage. He tried to reach Anya, but she vanished as if into thin air. He tried to get the video taken down, but it had already gone viral, re-uploaded across countless platforms, unstoppable. The troll army he hired? They only helped amplify the scandal. Serafina, on the other hand, woke up in the hospital and was immediately bombarded with videos of herself spreading like wildfire. The once untouchable heiress cracked instantly. She had a mental breakdown on the spot, slipping into psychosis. The Chin family? They exploded. It didn't take long for them to trace the origin of the video back to Kai. Furious, they concluded it was either a deliberate trap set by Kai or the Zhang family. The Chun Corporation struck back with everything they had, crushing Zhang family assets in a wave of ruthless retaliation. And as for Anya, after what happened in that warehouse, her already fragile mental state collapsed entirely. A few nights later, during a storm, someone reported seeing a woman fall into the river. She was never seen again, vanished without a trace, neither alive nor dead. He didn't bother following up on what happened to the others. Instead, he reconnected with his old college senior, Leo, and brought his research results to a different city. When Leo saw him, he pulled him into a big hug. He threw himself wholeheartedly into work with Leo's company. Providing state-of-the-art labs and abundant funding, his research progressed rapidly. In less than 6 months, they made a breakthrough. Their project gained major traction, and the company became the talk of the industry, attracting massive venture capital. And he finally had a real career, a foundation for his independence and future. Just then, an uninvited guest appeared, his mother. She looked significantly older and more worn down. The Zhang Corporation, under the dual pressure of Chun family's relentless attacks and its own mismanagement, was on the verge of bankruptcy. Somehow she had tracked him down and found Leo's company. She showed up with zero guilt. Instead, she immediately put on the authoritative airs of a mother. She said, "Everyone says your research is impressive. Hurry up and transfer it to Zhang Corporation for free. It's what you owe the family. As long as you help us through this crisis, I'll acknowledge you again as my son." He looked at her quietly, filled with nothing but numb indifference. "My work has nothing to do with the Zhang family," he said coldly. "You still have Kai? Let him save the Zhang family." Enraged, she raised her hand to hit him again. But this time, before she could try anything, he immediately called security and had her thrown out. She left, screaming obscenities, filthy, venomous insults. But her voice grew fainter and fainter until it disappeared beyond the doors. While the Chen family was busy crushing the Zhang family, they didn't spare the one they saw as the true culprit, Kai. He later heard that one night they cornered him in an alley. He lost something. Whatever it was, it broke him completely, physically and mentally. The chain of traumas finally shattered his mind. He was sent to a psychiatric facility. That male-led aura he clung to? It probably vanished the moment he hit send on that damning video. Meanwhile, he compiled evidence of the Chun family's illegal acts of revenge and handed it over to one of their rival corporations. They acted fast. Soon, the Chun family scandals exploded across the internet, along with the exposure of numerous illegal business practices. The Chun Corporation stock crashed, their cash flow collapsed. Eventually, they declared bankruptcy. Most of the Chun family's top members now face serious legal prosecution. As for the Zhang family, they fell even earlier than the Chens. His mother tried to flee with the last of the family's assets and her lover, but was caught by his father. In a fit of rage, he stabbed her to death with a fruit knife, then suffered a stroke himself due to the emotional shock, leaving him paralyzed. And Kai? He wondered if in the rare moments of clarity he might still have, he regretted the choices he made. But that had nothing to do with him anymore. Another year had passed. Leo's company had transformed from a startup into one of the hottest rising stars in the industry. Their pharmaceutical research had passed clinical trials and was about to enter production, bringing hope to countless patients. That evening was the company's year-end celebration banquet. As one of the core researchers and shareholders, he was naturally among the center of attention. At the climax of the banquet, Leo mentioned his name in particular, expressing his gratitude for the tremendous impact he had brought to the company. Amid the thunderous applause, Leo personally stepped down from the stage and handed him a share transfer document along with the key to a beautifully crafted apartment. It was a luxury apartment in a prime downtown location. On top of that, there was a generous year-end bonus. "Congratulations, Ethan," Leo said with a smile. "You deserve this." After the banquet, he went alone to the apartment that had been awarded to him. Standing in front of the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, he looked out over the dazzling city lights below. He had completely freed himself from the chains of that absurd soap opera of a story and cut all ties with the disgraceful past. The future had arrived, brilliant and full of light.